Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Industry Matters podcast presented by VGM. Each episode, we feature conversations with leaders, innovators, advocates, and everyday people who are working to strengthen patient care, support business operations, and shape a sustainable future for the DME-POS, CRT, home access, and broader home healthcare space. At VGM, we believe that knowledge moves the industry forward. Our goal is to give you real insights you can use, whether that's navigating industry challenges, improving patient care, or strengthening your business.
Welcome to the Industry Matters O&P edition. For our VGM OPGA podcast here, we've got a great guest in store. Excited to introduce Fanny Schultea. She's the executive director of the Motion Foundation, formerly known as the Orthotic and Prosthetic Foundation, which I'd like to talk a little bit about that later. Fanny has worked as a prosthetist. She's a fellow with distinction, a longtime advocate for advancing education, research, and quality in O&P. She served as assistant professor at Baylor College of Medicine and is passionate about strengthening the future of our profession through education, workforce development, innovation, and most importantly, improved patient care. And in addition to all that, she served our country in the armed forces, and I'd like to personally thank her for her service to our great country. And last year, she was recognized by OPGA with our partner Össur as 2025's O&P Woman of the Year. Thanks for joining us, Fanny.
Thank you, Jeff. So happy to be here.
O&P Woman of the Year is such an amazing accomplishment, well-deserved recognition, especially considering some of the other amazing past finalists and past O&P Women of the Year. You joined some great company. I just want to ask you, what did receiving that honor mean to you personally and professionally?
Yeah, personally, it was overwhelming and, of course, a huge honor. As you said, the finalists over the years and the recipients over the years have been just exceptional individuals. Whether they're women or not, the incredible work that they've done in O&P is just really inspiring. And being up on stage with the other finalists last year was just an incredible experience. Professionally, it gives me an opportunity to hopefully continue to elevate the place of women in leadership in O&P. I think it goes without saying that we're starting to see an increase in the presence of women in the classroom, in our training and clinical programs, and across clinics and nationwide and worldwide. And I think the proportion of men to women in clinical practice is actually reversing from where it was in the past. And so I think you're just going to see more and more incredible finalists and recipients. And I'm excited to be able to be a part of this year's selection process and award announcement this fall.
Yeah, to be determined. We're not going to unveil that just yet, but yeah, it's an exciting field that you're going to get to be a part of. So you've had quite the career journey, clinician, educator, nonprofit executive. Could you just let us know what are some of the highlights or moments that stand out as some of the defining experiences for you?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think I can call out a particular instance or a particular case where something occurred that I can really call out. I think what I can do is draw the relationship between all the things that I've done, even though they seem somewhat disparate at first glance. At the end of the day, I got into this profession to solve complex problems and to serve people, to serve patients, first and foremost, every time, always about the patient. And when I was in patient care, I was really inspired when I saw other patients impacting other patients. So whether it was through support groups, through community networks, and just even seeing each other in clinic, and just watching how much more impactful that was than any of the work I could do. So when I was touching a patient's life, they were then touching other patients' lives. And that was really appealing to me, and I felt that would be the best pathway for me to have a greater impact on more patients. So that drew me into education. So for every student I would teach, they would get out into practice and see anywhere between hundreds and to thousands of patients, depending on the work they're doing, every year. So a career of just a decade for one of those students that I trained is potentially in the tens of thousands of patients, which is a tremendous impact. And I think today, with the work that I'm doing with the Live in Motion Foundation, it's the same thing, right? It's impact on patients through the varied work that all of our recipients and awardees are getting, right? Whether it's research impacting patient care, whether it's more students reducing the barriers to education, more care extenders coming in to be able to provide more care to more patients. And so it's kind of like this compounding effect. And I guess as I've progressed through my professional career and the different activities, it's kind of like continuing to step up that impact ripple effect, which is what I'm most drawn to in these different roles that I've had the privilege of having over the years.
Yeah, it's all really great stuff. I loved what you mentioned about the patient aspect. They come from the school of hard knocks, right? Something that you can't teach. Patients have something that can't be learned in a classroom, and those patients teaching other patients, I think, is something that will always be valued in our field. This award, the O&P Woman of the Year award, specifically recognizes leadership and impact. What would you say some of your most proud accomplishments are over the last year?
We're going to talk about it a little bit later on the rebrand, but I think this past year, of course, the Live in Motion Foundation every year awards a range of different programs and funding opportunities. So, of course, those I'm always proud of. Every time we announce a recipient, every time we share the news with a recipient, it's probably the best part of my year. And I just am in the midst of that season right now where we get to notify a lot of award recipients. But I think a little bit kind of peeling out the onion layers, really learning how important it is and how valuable it is to communicate the work we do outside of our own space. To really understand how we impact the people we take care of and how those individuals, how the patients impact their families, then their communities and each other. And how do we really express that in a way where people who don't know about what we do can understand it in plain language and be inspired by it, be motivated by it, and be engaged in it, right? How can the public be involved in the work that we do and be educated about the work that we do? So I've been learning a lot about how to do that. That has a lot to do with our rebrand, and we'll see if we are able to do it effectively. But I'm really proud of our organization, our board of directors, and our volunteer leadership for doing the same alongside me and really learning about the most effective ways to do that and to taking a risk, to moving in a direction where the profession hasn't gone before, and to trying a new approach to gain greater support so that we can continue to drive advancements for the very same reason we're all here, right? For patients, for patient care.
We're all incredibly proud of you too. It's a great thing that you guys are doing. It's tough out there. Funding climates are difficult, and you seem to be one of the few sources today that has historically not been the case, but stewarding a great responsibility there. And we're excited to see how you guys, with this new pivot, to see how you accomplish this in the coming years. How has receiving your O&P Woman of the Year award influenced your perspective on leadership and the responsibility to the profession?
I always feel a tremendous sense of responsibility, and even more so now, probably more than ever, as alluded to. There's significant funding challenges in the world in general, but certainly in O&P and in research, in people's abilities to get into this profession. The barriers to entry are pretty high. Cost of education is very high. And so I always feel a strong sense of responsibility as an organization, to be able to be a reliable source of funding and support for the professionals in our space. So that's just an ongoing responsibility. And as a Woman of the Year recipient, I've really wanted to try to demonstrate what it's like to be bold with ideas, to have the courage to try new things, and to step outside of maybe what historically has been understood in leadership in our space, and to redefine it a little bit. And so I think Woman of the Year outlines maybe different leaders in the sense that they're women, but also I think going a little bit beyond that, it's maybe identifying individuals who are taking a step out of traditional leadership or traditional work and really taking it a step forward to bring the whole profession along with them.
Sort of in that light, I think when we're talking about the new demographic makeup shift in O&P, what advice would you have? And I think this is really important for emerging leaders or other professionals, particularly women, that are looking to make a big impact or meaningful impact on O&P?
Yeah, and I think meaningful impact is subjective and objective, right? What the impact one person makes may be wonderful and admirable, but it's not necessarily the impact that you are meant to make or want to make.
Mm.
And so I think my
Mm.
greatest advice is for people to perpetually self-reflect and think about their own personal journey, their own experiences, how those things can amplify the impact that they can have in the areas that they're most passionate about, and to not be afraid to express that. For many years, I was maybe even obnoxious to some people about my passions, the areas I wanted to change, where I felt there was needs for improvement, and the things that I was particularly oriented to and interested in. And over time, people just heard me, and some people just heard me, and that was it, right? And some people heard me and gave me opportunities. And it resonated with some and not with others. But if I had never voiced my passions and the impact that I wanted to make, when there were opportunities that were given to me and that were brought my way, those wouldn't have happened had I not really made it clear of what I wanted. But I wouldn't have known what I wanted if I hadn't self-reflected and spent the time to always take a step inward and look carefully at my intentions, at my goals, and my capacity for the impact that I was wanting to make. So I think it's really about knowing yourself and learning about yourself through the journey, but also making it clear to others along that journey where you want to be, where you see yourself, and where you're willing to work hard to be. So not being afraid to voice your opinion and to share about what you want.
Yeah, and it's a big responsibility that comes with, as you have had other people help you along your way, there becomes opportunities for you to do the same in kind to others. You've talked about building relationships with others or creating opportunities for others. And that's in that vein of servant leadership. What does servant leadership mean to you?
Yeah, so I think at the core, so mission first, going back to kind of the military days, just always remembering what your mission is. So in those days, it was basically developed for me. These days, as I just mentioned, relating to advice that I would give others, is have your own mission, right? Make it clear to others what your mission is, always be mission focused, and also patience. I think there's always something that's been a constant through my entire time in this space, is the most important thing is the patient. And if I can always use that filter for everything that I'm doing, even the things I do today, it's like, is this new program initiative, or is this new engagement with this person or company or what have you, is this really going to, at the end of the day, impact patients positively? Are we doing something good for the whole reason why we're all here? And so that's in service of the mission and in service of patients. So I think I always try to just stay aligned with those two, and I can pretty much guarantee that I'm always going to be on the right track every time.
Where have you seen the greatest momentum in O&P?
Yeah, it's been pretty cool to be a part of this profession in the last few years. There's been, I think, a few areas that have really shifted and moved the space forward. I think vertical integration, whether you like it or not, is in some ways, in combination with building efficiency and care delivery, that's part of it. So I think organizations and practices are really working to examine their processes and the way that they deliver care to do so in a more efficient way, to be able to spend more time with patients, see more patients, and do more for patients, and reimagine a little bit the traditional landscape of the everyday work of the O&P clinician of the past. This is reflected with changes in fabrication materials and methodologies, as well as just the way that manufacturing is done in general. I think the use of AI, I think we would all be remiss if we didn't mention AI as a care extender. There's many entities and organizations that are working to integrate AI directly into patient care for the good of patients and clinicians. as well as the recognition that care extenders are just absolutely necessary part of that care delivery. And I think that would go into care delivery efficiency. It fits in with AI, and it fits in also with just the improvements in manufacturing and the different processes to get from point A to point B with our patients.
Wouldn't be a forward-looking momentum conversation without the mention of AI. That's true. So the O&P Foundation, rebrand to Live in Motion Foundation. I want to get into that because it's new, it's exciting. People are going to be curious, and I want you to have the opportunity to shape that narrative. We've spoken, you and I, a little bit about that, and I'm incredibly excited at the opportunity that you have to make a difference. Earlier, you were talking about just awareness to the industry or to the general public about our industry. And I think disability in general, there's such an unknown on how do you interact, but there's also a lot of really cool and exciting things and ways to get involved. With the rebrand, I guess just starting at the beginning, like why? What inspired the change?
Yeah, it's definitely one of the things that I can say I could speak on behalf of my board too. We're all very proud of the work that we've done on this. So yeah, we used to be the Orthotics and Prosthetics Foundation for Education and Research. And that was really an independent organization born from two previous 501c3s that were living essentially under AOPA and Academy, and they served as funding entities, and they were operationally not independent. And so it was really inspiring when I first came on board that there was this new organization that was born from two previous organizations. So it was essentially a consolidation, which is, I think, very needed in our space in general. So that was very inspiring. And also inspiring is to pull these funding mechanisms away from the auspices of other organizations and really make them completely independent. Because we really are the only charitable organization. And as a 501c3, we represent the community. So in this case, the community of professionals who are involved in orthotics, prosthetics, and podorthic care, whether it's residents, students, clinicians at any stage of their career, researchers, business professionals in our space. And that's who we serve. And we should be receiving support from the community to serve the community. And the way that we exist is raising money to give it away, and doing so in the most efficient, hopefully elegant, and steward forward way that we possibly can, so that as much money can go into the hands and into the impact that our professionals will have on patients. And through our very brief time as the O&P Foundation for Education and Research, prior to the rebrand, we realized that although we have incredible support within our profession, everybody recognizes the need for this. We even had some significant financial seed funding, if you will, that really set us up for success so that we could grow the organization to be not only independent, but highly sustainable for hopefully decades and even longer to come. But what we realized in the process of working within our space is that we're very insular, right? It's very circular discussions. It's a lot of recycled funding requests and limited resources. And at the end of the day, our profession has needs that far exceed its capacity financially. And we recognized as an organization that in order for us to be sustainable and to continue supporting the space in the way that we would hope to, that we need to turn our attention outward. No organization has had to do this before in O&P, so we're uniquely positioned to be able to take the charge here. And we need to make sure that our name can be pronounced, that it immediately makes sense to a layman who may not know anything about orthotics, prosthetics, and podorthics, and pull them in and tell a compelling story and help them really understand the work that we actually do, without getting in the weeds, making it really clear that this is work that impacts them potentially in the future. It may impact their children, their mother, their brother, their sister, their grandmother. 1 in 4 Americans before the end of their life will be interacting with a prosthesis or an orthosis or a podorthic device at some point in their lifetime. There are a tremendous amount of people who are served by the professionals in our space. And I just don't think anybody knows that. Anytime we share stories about the work that we do, everyone is immediately stopping what they're doing and wants to hear more. People are compelled. It is absolutely the coolest thing that we get to work with people to either bring new possibility into their life, to bring them back to their families and their communities in ways that they would not have been able to without our support. And it's really special and meaningful, and it's something that we should be shouting on the rooftops. So the rebrand was really about making it clear, live in motion, right? Living in motion, moving through your life. And when we have a disability, sometimes that prevents us from moving through our life in a way that is full and meaningful. And if we can restore that or bring that back or transform that, that's at the core of what we do. So we felt the name really reflected that, but also just the way that we communicate mobility care, right? Who are we helping? How many people really are out there who we help? I think we just haven't had to formulate those thoughts and communicate those messages before. We're doing that now. And so the goal with this is to reach out to partners, donors, supporters who are in the community at large across the US and hopefully globally, who are either representing the corporate space, right? Different companies that are out there, individuals who have high net worth, who may have a relationship to the space without even realizing or understanding or knowing that there's opportunities to support. Making known the issues that are facing our profession. We have workforce challenges. We have access to care challenges, whether it's clinical practices are not available in rural environments, or how many people are getting the care that they really need. How many people struggle with finding care? How long does it take to get an appointment? How is the coverage impacted? Where is the evidence to support coverage? All of these things are really under our purview. And how do we support the clinicians that are currently out there providing care so that they can continue to provide care for years to come, not to leave, and to continue enhancing their skills as the world gets more complicated and as patient numbers and volumes increase. So I could go on forever, but it's an exciting time where we are going to be reaching out, and it's going to be an interesting, I would say, maybe 2 to 3 years to see if we're able to successfully engage and bring attention to our field and hopefully bring some capital investment into the work that we're doing.
Yeah, you mentioned it's important to be able to pronounce the name, right?
Yes.
When I was in elementary school, and I would say it's a prosthesis. A what? It's to pronounce. So let's not create additional hurdles for the explanation of the name to the general public. So Live in Motion Foundation, I think, is great. Captures just a lot. What do you hope that people think or feel when they hear that, Live in Motion Foundation?
Yeah, I think when I hear it and think about what I'm hoping resonates with people is that our lives are about movement, right? Whether it's movement of thought, movement of our bodies, movement in literally time, right? Like time is passing. It's already the end of summer. We are moving through our lives. And that fluidity and that motion through life can be interrupted. It can be challenged by many different things. And whether it's an accident, or you might be born with a limb difference, or have a neurologic issue that impacts your ability to move through the world in the same way as others. Just to be able to bring people back into that kind of flow and that river of life with as little interruption as possible and as much fluidity as possible. It's really about bringing people back into their lives. And that's really what I hope the message comes across, and that people understand that there are professionals in healthcare that spend a lot of time with patients that help them with these issues, and that there's incredible technologies that are available. But there is just a significant kind of chasm that enables these patients not only to access qualified, really experienced clinicians to provide that care, but to access the technologies that are also being developed in parallel by the entire industry and manufacturing space. And when people hear that there's no insurance coverage, or when people hear that there's no providers within hundreds of miles of somebody, or that many Medicare patients can't even get a prosthesis, or many children can't get it, they get upset. It especially if they know someone who's been impacted by our care. I just think we don't talk to anybody else but ourselves. I don't think that. I know that. So I'm excited to hear what people say, think, how they react, and how they seek to support not only Live in Motion Foundation, but hopefully bring light and awareness to every other organization and every other patient care organization, manufacturer, and professional organizations in our space.
Now, maybe by the time this podcast is released, it might be towards the end of summer, but we're not quite there yet. Don't rush us. If you see Fanny out there, give her a hug. She might need some encouragement because she's depressed that it's almost the end of summer, but we got another month or so we're going to make the most of it. What are you the most excited about over the next 3 to 5 years with the foundation?
Yeah, I think it's continuing to increase the impact of our programs, so to amplify the impact of our current programs, to continue to roll out new and innovative programs over the next few years that are designed to move the needle on some of the challenges that are faced by our profession, to continue to listen to our profession through our focus groups and through open community engagement. And then, of course, next 2 to 3 years, really to see how this rebrand, how this outreach, how this kind of external facing communication, relationship building, and interactions, how they unfold. And I think we're going to learn a lot. We're going to experience a tremendous amount, and I can't even imagine what that will be, but I'm very excited about it. And it's new, and it's kind of uncharted territory, and I know we will learn a great deal, and we will be able to share what we've learned with our community and hopefully continue to serve the community for decades to come.
That's great. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens.
Me too.
So fun hypothetical. If resources were unlimited, what challenge in mobility would you tackle first?
For mobility care for patients, just in the immediate, is just making sure that there's more clinicians available to people within a certain distance. Really looking, and there's been some work done on this recently, just really looking at our country to start with, to really identify the healthcare deserts in O&P and to try to fill those gaps. So I think that would be something that would be really important. Access to care in terms of the evidence that's needed. So really funding at the 7-figure level for many research projects that aim to answer the questions that are needed for policymakers and regulators, insurers, to change their policies to allow greater access for patients. And I think really taking a long, hard look at the barriers that we're facing in bringing new clinicians in with our educational structure, the cost of our education, really trying to lower the cost of education, increase the accessibility of our education, and also to really prioritize care extenders, investment in care extenders. So O&P assistants, fitters, technicians are critical, and then other clinicians who help us to do our work. Podorthists are a really critical clinician who are part of our healthcare team that also have been de-emphasized for a long time, that need to be further supported. So that was like 10 answers to your question, because if resources were unlimited, then I would tackle all of those things, right?
Yeah, but they are not.
They are not. And we have definitely, as I'd shared, we have learned that. Even though we may be engaging in efforts to change that a little bit, we still need to be extremely mindful, be very intentional stewards of the funds that we do receive, and really aim to prioritize the most critical issues that are the most readily accessible for impact, right? There might be some critical issues, but the amount of work to address it and the cost is out of the scope of what we have available. So really it's marrying the funding with the most impactful opportunities at that given time for O&P.
Yeah, just what an incredible opportunity and responsibility you have to influence the direction of the industry and the future of patient care. It's just really crazy to think about, but you're in that position. And we talk about the future. 2030 seems like forever away, but it's only 4 years. So we get there, right? 4 years later, 2030. How do you measure success? What success look like for you at the Live in Motion Foundation?
Yeah, so 2030 is an interesting year, right? That's when CMS is fully embracing value-based care payment models. What I see as success for Live in Motion Foundation is to have a pretty good start to a robust endowment so that we're not spending all of our energy raising money, but we're spending our energy identifying and working with professional organizations, patient care organizations, manufacturers, really collaboratively with the whole industry to identify those investment priorities, right? Whether they are to drive our profession closer to being able to demonstrate its value, which is going to be an important part, I'm sure. But you can't do those things if you're tied up in fundraising, right? Year to year, kind of paycheck to paycheck, then you can't fully actualize the potential of the organization. So I'm hoping that by 2030, we are finding ourselves in a position to be able to delegate more of our energy, more of our time towards those collaborative initiatives where we can drive change for the whole profession, with the whole profession. So we'll see, right? We'll see if we get there. So maybe we have to do another podcast in 4 years from now.
Anytime, I'd love that. And so how do we get there then? Okay, so that's the goal. That's the vision. So many clinicians, manufacturers, educators, industry partners that have vested interest in the success of this. How do they support? What can they do to support the foundation's mission?
Yeah, great question. So I think the first thing is just being aware of what we do actually, what our intentions are, how we engage the whole profession. So I think an easy way to engage is participate in our focus groups, right? Sign up for our mailing list. Depending where you are in your career, it might be of interest to join one of our committees. And even if you don't have that much time, maybe serve as a reviewer. We have a really robust kind of multi-staged review process for all of our programs, and it includes the whole community. In fact, we have some of the highest numbers of volunteers out of any professional organization because we really lean on the community for the work that we do. So it could also look in the form of leadership, a role on our board or in our committee leadership. There's the obvious way where you can give a little bit or a lot, right? You can give a little bit every month. You can give a lot if you're able. You can give your time. You can give your energy. You can give your thoughts. You can give your money. You can give your introductions, right? If you are working with patients or if you have people in your network who you think might be interested or have the capacity to engage with our organization in this way, or be able to extend introductions through their networks that might be able to support us. All of that are equally critical ways to support this organization and, by extension, the profession.
That's great. I feel like we could just keep going.
I'm definitely holding back.
And I would love that. But yeah, we're probably going to have to make this a series. So thank you so much, Fanny. I appreciate your time. I want to ask one last question. and feel free to kind of take this wherever you go. But if there's one message that you'd like listeners to take away or remember from our conversation today, what would that be?
Yeah, it's not that this is a promotion, but it just so happens to be a similar message that we're going to be putting across at an event that we're having at the upcoming AOPA Assembly in conjunction with So Everybody Can Move and Capital Connections, called a Night of Impact. So if you're interested and you happen to be in Las Vegas in September for the assembly, I definitely encourage you to join us for this really cool event. But the message I really want everyone to hear is that regardless of what your role is in this profession, whether you're a technician, a clinician, a patient, a business owner, an administrator, an assistant, whatever you may be doing today, that you have a significant impact. I think this profession tends to be very disempowered by the healthcare environment. I think many healthcare providers are. And we forget that every day we make an impact. And we should feel really good about that. And we should feel really empowered by that. And we need to behave accordingly. And I think too often we don't recognize how critical the work we do is and how proud we should be of it, how we should really share that information with others. Our patients do, right? We don't. We're really bad at it. And I think we project this lack of sense of the sheer massive volume of impact we have every single day. So the message is you are making an impact right now. And there's nothing more you really need to do other than maybe get a little bit of perspective and realize how much that is and be really proud of it. Own it and continue to make sure that you remind yourself of that and to share it with one person each day. Right? When I talk to my son about what I get to do, it makes me feel really good. And it reminds me of the impact that I'm having. So if you can just share with one person, whether it's your child, your spouse, a friend, a cousin, a patient, someone in the grocery store, someone you may see who's struggling with a physical or a non-physical disability, about what you do every day, I think we can move the needle there collectively in our own worlds for the greater good.
Couldn't have said it better myself. What a way to end it. Fanny, thanks so much for joining us on the Industry Matters O&P Edition podcast. Always a privilege. Looking forward to seeing you in Vegas in just a really short amount of time. That will officially be the end of summer. We can maybe celebrate the end of summer together. Looking forward to that. Yes, everyone attend. Say it again, the night to...
Yeah, so September 10th is the Night of Impact. It's at the end of the conference day on Thursday during the AOPA Assembly. And it's really a night to celebrate the organizations like the Live in Motion Foundation, like So Everybody Can Move, and like Capital Connections for all the type of work that we do independently and collaboratively to serve patients and access to care and mobility care and driving it into the future. So take a look at that. You can register through AOPA's website. And yeah, I hope to see you there. And we'll definitely be celebrating.
Tickets. That's right. That's right. We got our tickets. OPGA will be there. So can't wait.
Fantastic.
We'll talk to you soon. Appreciate your time, Fanny. Have a good
one. Absolutely. Thanks for having me. You as well.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.